So, welcome to the podcast for SoCal Multifamily Insights. I'm glad to have you here on our first podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for inviting me for this opportunity. And it's always a pleasure to educate anybody and everybody about the importance of estate planning.
Yes, you're right. Especially when it comes to investing and how to take your multifamily properties or any commercial investments and pass it along to your kids. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself, Linus. Who are you? How'd you get started in estate planning, and what were you doing before that?
Who am I?
Mhm.
That's such a loaded question. I'm about to go existential here. No. So I am an estate planning attorney. This is actually not how I started out my legal profession. I started out in corporate law. So I actually was dealing with a lot of businessmen and entrepreneurs that were tied up in LLCs and corporations. And even then, I was also doing living trusts, but not primarily, right? About 7 years ago, I found an estate planning law firm, and this is all they did.
Okay.
All they did was estate planning, amending trust administration. And that was really, I think, where my professional life made a pivot. And it was like there was no looking back. I
No.
love estate planning. I love everything about every aspect about that profession. And it's been great. I think it's not really a traditional job as far as attorneys go because I don't litigate, although I know estate planning attorneys who do that, but I don't litigate. And I actually do a lot of talks. I do a lot of seminars and speaking engagements because what I'm finding with estate planning is that the general public just doesn't know about why we need living trusts, how living trust works, why we need power of attorneys, the mechanics of that. And people just don't talk about it.
I find that a lot with my clients as well in the multifamily and investing space. They don't like to have that conversation, and when it does come to have that conversation, it's a little too late, or
Sticky. It gets sticky.
it's sticky, yeah, of how to do that. So I guess what my viewers would want to kind of know, and clients as well, is when do we get, what's I have a client, or an investor. He has 4 properties, he has 3 kids, has no trust. When's the best time to call you, or when's the best time to have a structure? Where do we go from here? Someone that's
Sure.
listening and wants to get into it?
Okay, so I think for someone who's listening, I think we really have to start at step one. We really have to start at step one, and that's really, when do I need a living trust? How do I know I need a living trust, right? And you've already thrown like so many phrases at me where I'm like, oh, that's a gold nugget. That's a gold nugget. So, golden rule is once you own real estate, any percentage of real estate. You could be a homeowner, you own your primary residence, or you could be like one of your multifamily investors where, I own 20% of a 10-unit apartment building. Once you own any percentage of real estate, you need a living trust.
Hmm.
There's no other way around it, right? Because then we start doing funny stuff. We try to get crafty. We start to get smarter than, the average bear. And then, you're cutting corners and then it's not wise to become your estate planning attorney. It's not wise to think you know more than a professional, right? But yeah, so once you own a piece of property or even a percentage of property, you need a living trust. Another big one for me, as you mentioned it, you have a client who's got young children and also owns real estate. That's also like 2 red flags for me. When you have minor children, you need a living trust, right? And the reason for that really, the real estate's involved, but what I'm finding is, parents, we try to be responsible. We try to take care of our obligations, but we get these life insurance policy, $1 million, $2 million in benefits. And then we've got, a 2 and a 3-year-old at home. And if something were to happen to you before your minor children reach the age of 18, that life insurance company is not paying out to a minor. They're going to hold on to that money until your oldest turns 18.
Oh, wow.
And even then, only the 18-year-old is going to get their share.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And so, if you've got sizable life insurance policies, you've got minor children, you need a living trust, because then at least we know why we get these life insurance policies, right? If I die, my kid still has to go to private school. I want my kid to go to college. I want my kid to enjoy Disneyland once in a while, right? But if you don't put that trust in place, that money's just in a holding place. It's not taking care of anybody.
So if it's in a trust.
But if you make that life insurance policy payable to your living trust, the moment your representative or your trustee can produce death certificates, that life insurance company is issuing a check.
Oh, wow.
And that's not years, right? We're not waiting again until your child reaches the age of majority. It's when you produce that death certificate.
Oh, wow. Well,
yeah. So that's a red flag. Yeah. I have a lot of clients now too that have kids with special needs. Mm-hmm. Autism's a big hot topic right now, right? If you have children with special needs, you have to put a living trust in place, because you don't want to leave your child $500,000, $1 million, just outright. Mm-hmm. We already know your child with special needs is receiving public benefits, because if they get that, they just receive it outright, those public benefits end.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you don't want to leave your special needs child with a curse. We want to leave them with a blessing, right?
Correct.
So what you do is you put a special needs trust in place. That special needs trust then inherits the $1 million, $2 million you leave behind. And while they're inheriting that money, they're still receiving that assistance.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah. So
there's a lot that goes into this, right?
So much. Yes.
Right.
So, when is the right time? I mean, sheesh, you really have to take your own temperature and assess your life. And if you are one of those people that I just mentioned, where you own real estate, or you own an LLC that owns 5% of an apartment building, or you own, you have young children, or you have special needs beneficiaries, then you need a living trust, and the time is now.
You mentioned LLC. So
yes,
a lot of clients and investors have these LLCs. So and a lot of them don't. So there need to be a proper structure to get into an living trust, or I can go, Jack Patel, go in there, or yourself, just a regular name.
So let me just point out, because I get this misconception all the time that I don't want to living trust because I just want everything in an LLC so that I'm protected, mm-hmm. right? The problem with that mindset is that you really don't want all of your eggs in one basket. Okay. So if you own a home and then you own a duplex, but your home is where you live, but your duplex is where you're wearing the hat of a landlord and you're making income off of that, then you want to separate your life personally from your life professionally, right? So Jack the homeowner and Jack the landlord, two different guys, because mm-hmm. in case your renter sues you, you don't want to put your primary home at risk.
Correct.
For that lawsuit, right? Now, it really depends on, you, what kind of structure you want for your entity. I have people that do LLCs, but then are taxed as S corporations because they're sole member LLCs, right? And LLCs were really meant for 2 or more people, right? But if you form an LLC and you elect to be taxed as an S corporation, then you're still getting the most tax advantages out of that entity, right? Also, just so you know, I'm not a CPA. I knew superficially the things I'm supposed to know.
I was right about to comment on that. So all this is, we're not tax advisors.
No, we are not.
Consult your proper CPA or
Absolutely.
tax. But just for information. Okay. Well, I get why. I guess most of our viewers get why, a living trust is there. It's for helping, transfer your wealth, your assets to your kids, but how do you minimize the estate and inheritance taxes? It's more of like tax.
That's wonderful. Yeah, wonderful question. Generally, it's really easy, because right now, a taxable estate for a single individual is at 14 million. Mm-hmm. So if you are under 14 million and you are single, we're not worried about inheritance taxes.
Okay.
If you are transferring real estate over to your children, then really what I'm worried about is tax reassessments for your real estate, paying property taxes on time, and your last tax filings at the time of your death, right? If we are above 14 million and you are a single individual, then we're sort of at that juncture that I like to call advanced wealth planning for the more affluent, right? And then we're really talking about how do we avoid estate planning taxes? Or I'm sorry, how do we avoid estate taxes? How do we avoid making Uncle Sam richer, right? And then we're really talking about having more than one trust in place. For example, like if you pass away and you're single and you've got $18 million in your estate, then we're now $4 million above the tax threshold, right, for taxable estates. You could be advised to, there's so many strategies. You could be advised to purchase a life insurance policy and then put it in an ILIT, an irrevocable life insurance trust. And really the ILIT is the purpose of the ILIT is to take care of taxes.
Oh, okay.
Just to pay the taxes. I have clients that create grantor annuity trusts where they transfer money to an annuity. The annuity pays them for their lifetime, but the moment that they die, it goes to their beneficiaries. And then that money is no longer considered part of my client's estate. Mm-hmm. So that's another.
Oh, okay.
So there's ways, but the key numbers here are 14 million for a single individual, double that for a married couple. So 28 million. If at the time of your passing, you've surpassed 28 million, then we have to start thinking about taxes, right? But if we're not approaching that, if we're not there, then I'm not worried about, I'm just worried about the normal taxes.
Well, I always thought that when you got in this trust, you have maybe 2 or 3 properties valued at like 5-6 million or whatever case may be. Upon my passing, if it's in a trust and my trustees are my kids, the properties go to them because they avoid, right? The main thing is to avoid probate. They get the step up basis. And then
it depends. So Prop 19 really changed the game for a lot of my children's clients. I think I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. Before Prop 19, you could have inherited 10 homes from your mother and you would have gotten the step up in basis on all 10 properties. Why? Because you're your mother's child.
Right.
Right? Okay. After Prop 19 passed, it was made so that you could only really get the step up in basis on one of those properties.
Oh.
Right? Because and then there was another caveat. You can only claim that one of those properties was your primary residence.
Oh.
That's how you attain the step up in basis.
Okay.
If you can't do that because you already have your own primary residence, and actually you've got your primary residence and 5 other properties, you're getting a reassessment on all of the properties.
So hold on. So the purpose of a trust was to delegate what the trustee, the owner wants to the trustees, which is the kids, right? So if you have 4, I'm giving you 4 multifamily properties, but the kids all are, in the mid 40s, they all have their own primary homes. Parents pass, and these properties in their trust was going to go to them. You're telling me that now these 4 properties that are in the trust that are investment properties will get reassessed on property tax?
Yes. So let's back up. The purpose of the trust is to avoid probate.
Right.
That's it. We're just trying to avoid court interference. We want an ease of transfer. When you pass away, your kids get to control your assets and your property. No court interference. That's probate, because probate is like, a judge gets to tell you what to do and when to do it and how to do it. Right? So when the living trust is in place, you ask nobody for permission. The trust agreement says Jack has permission to do A, B, and C, and Jack's got to give A, B, and C to Billy, Bobby, and Bonnie, right? The trust is not there to avoid property tax reassessments.
But you get the cost basis step up if you want to sell the property.
Okay, you could.
Right.
Yes.
So
Because we're always thinking about, do you want to keep it?
right.
Right.
You buy, parents bought a fourplex for 300,000. It's worth 1.2. If it's in a trust, you get the cost basis gets moved up to 1.2. So the kids can basically sell the property, but if they want to keep it,
that's
the
when
operation part gets more because the expense gets more because the property tax gets reassessed.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. And then too, we have to think about this also. I've got a lot of families where they're passing on properties in the form of LLCs.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you the question.
So that's
how does that work? Because we do have a lot of viewers that have multiple LLCs into a trust that they want to pass out.
You know what? I've not yet seen a reassessment for an LLC owned property.
Really?
Because I feel like the paperwork and the forms are not set up to keep track of these companies the way they keep track of primary residences.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope no one from the assessors is listening. They're going to generate like 10 different forms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I feel like there isn't a lot of gatekeeping, when it comes to LLC owned like apartment buildings. Because let's think about this. If we have two families that own a 20-unit apartment building, yours and mine, you own 50%, I own 50%, we each put our 50% into our trusts.
Individual trusts,
Our individual trusts. But now our trust, your trust, my trust, owns 50%, and you die and I die, the trust still owns it.
Right.
Right? So now our kids are owning and managing. And how is the county going to know?
Oh.
They're not.
Interesting.
They're not,
right?
They're not. Not until one of us sells to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I say, Jack, we're quitting California. We're going to Texas.
Okay.
Then I sell it to you. At that time, we'll trigger a tax reassessment because ownership has changed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right? And maybe even then, now that I'm thinking about it, we might not still trigger a tax reassessment because it still stays in the LLC, except that now you own 100% of the LLC.
Correct.
Right?
That's just because state filing on that.
And so then we don't change ownership with the county. See how we can get away with this?
So it's good to have all your properties in LLC other than even for liability.
So listen, this is why wealthy people have like 50 LLCs going on at one time. I mean it. This is a big, it's a game changer that, a lot of like just people in the community, we just sort of undervalue these entities, but they matter and they mean a lot, especially when you start playing these games where it's like, okay, succession, inheritance, how do we retain the most wealth that we can for generations to come, generational wealth, that type of stuff.
So you heard it here. Make sure you have all your properties in an LLC. What about your primary? I always,
your primary residence, you want to make sure that it's in your living trust. I had a client and they were trying to be so smart. This was, of course, before they met me. and they put their home in an LLC.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I've seen something like that.
Like blew my mind because the problem with that is that once you put the property in an LLC, the county recorder and the county assessor already knows, oh, you don't live here, so we're gonna assess you as if you were a business.
Oh, okay.
That's different.
Right.
That's different. And so
because all your personal property gets everything.
Yeah. So they really messed up with that. So I would advise against that. You really can only protect yourself so much, right? Mm-hmm. And putting your primary residence in an LLC it's not going to help your children because I'm going to give you an example. If I put my home in an LLC and I left it to my kids, when they inherit it, they're not inheriting it as a primary residence, even if they live there.
Okay.
Right? They're inheriting it as an LLC.
As a business.
as a business.
Oh,
And
wow.
so there will be no step up in basis.
Right. Okay.
So that's something to think about. That's something to think about.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of knowledge right there. Nuggets.
Yeah.
Um, tell me, or tell our viewers, with, like you said, time is of the essence when it comes to doing this. You want to do it sooner than later. But I bet you probably, when you had some clients have done it almost very, very late.
Yeah.
Can you give me some horror stories or
Oh my God, I have
something
so many horror stories.
where you got to, well, where you made it happen, but you're like, hey, I wish they would have done it, 3 months
Okay.
ago or a year ago or something like that. So I can share with the viewers that, hey, if you haven't done anything like this or thinking about it, contact Lioness right here or any other state attorney or tax attorney or not tax, estate planner,
Yeah.
and get on it.
Sure. So, I think this is where we're at a juncture where I think it's important for me to mention power of attorneys.
Power attorneys,
Okay.
yes.
So, power of attorneys, it gets overlooked so often, so often. I want to say, like, in my daily professional life, it gets looked over 100% of the time. And that's really because when I tell people, oh, I do estate planning, I deal with living trusts, everybody skips to their deaths. Everybody thinks like, oh, who am I giving what when I die? And I don't like my daughter-in-law, all this runs through their head. But the thing is, Jack, is that everybody is living longer. Okay. I mean, I would be so lucky if I died and it was just like, boom, just like that. But no, people live longer. They experience a decline in health. The body ages, the mind ages.
Oh, okay.
I deal with a lot of cognitive disorder, cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's. This is a thing in my world, right? And so people overlook power of attorneys. I think, yes, the living trust, it avoids probate, but power of attorneys help avoid conservatorship. So there's two phases in your life where the court can come in and intervene. One, obviously at death, we know this, it's called probate. If you die without an estate plan, if you die without the appropriate documents in place, then yeah, your kids and your wife, your spouse, they may be going to probate, right? Because you didn't handle things accordingly while you were alive. But there's also something called conservatorship, and that's where people have to go to court to apply to become your conservator or your agent who makes decisions for you.
Right.
So this actually happened with a wife. I want to say she was in her 60s and she had to apply for her husband's conservatorship because he was losing his mind.
Okay.
And they didn't have power of attorneys in place because she was operating under this misconception that if I'm married, I can just make decisions for my husband.
Which everyone
That's not how that works. Your marriage certificate just means you're married.
Okay.
That's it, right? I remember I had a lady and she was like, I don't need power of attorneys. I have my marriage certificate. And if my husband dies, I'm just going to show people that. And I said, okay, well, if you go to the bank where he keeps his separate bank accounts and you show them your marriage certificate, the teller is going to look at you like, and what? What else? Right? Because that's not sufficient.
Oh.
Even spouses. And a lot of spouses these days have separate bank accounts, separate IRAs, separate mutual funds, all of this. So normal, right? But in order for you to access your spouse's financial accounts or talk to somebody, on behalf of your spouse, you need power of attorney documents in place. If you don't, you're going through a conservatorship, which is 6 months, tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
It's a headache. And we're not even talking about death. We're just talking about maybe a cognitive decline, right?
Right.
So everybody should have power of attorneys.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what your net worth is. You could have $200,000 in an IRA. You could have $20 million in an IRA. You need power of attorneys in place. Married, single, it doesn't matter. You need them, right? And I bring that up because when you were like, oh, let's talk about a time when you had to do an emergency plan. First of all, I do way too many emergency plans.
Okay.
To the point where I'm now like, you know what? I have to charge emergency fees because this is wild. Like it's wild. So 2 years ago, I was called to the hospital. Oh my gosh, it might have been Long Beach Memorial on Harbor.
Atlantic.
Atlantic. Okay, there you something like that. Okay. So 2 years ago, I was called to the hospital because a lady had been hospitalized. She fell and she actually lived alone. And she was older. She had to be in her 80s. And the person who was calling me was her best friend.
Okay.
Okay. She's like, I need you to get to the hospital because she felt no one's letting me talk to them because she doesn't have anything. She doesn't have a trust. She doesn't have a will. She doesn't have power of attorneys. So I get there, I interview her. She's frazzled, because she's been in the hospital for too long. She wants to go home. And she seemed a little weak to me, obviously, because she'd been hospitalized in bed for like days now. And I knew right away we have to get power of attorneys for this lady, right? So I had a talk with her. We talked about what her intentions were, and I had her sign power of attorney. So obviously, she's not married, no kids. She told me that she wanted her best friend to be her power of attorney. Okay. So we did that, right? Executed power of attorneys, all of that. And so the lady's still at the hospital, and her best friend's calling me, and she's like, oh my God, she doesn't have a will or any of this other stuff, right? She owns this house. She's got this much in assets, all of this. And I already knew that because the client was still in the hospital and, a little agitated because they were not in the best of health. They wanted to go home. That we had to put a trust in place, and it was going to have to be the power of attorney that put the trust in place, which they can do that.
Okay.
Okay. Power of attorneys are amazing because they step into your shoes. Right. Whatever you can do, your power of attorney can do. And so we did that in a matter of days because I was concerned because there was no one was telling me when my client was coming out of the hospital. And I had seen her, I'd spoken to her, and she just seemed weak, right? So we put the trust in place. We put her house in trust. Her house was in Carson. We did that in days. I want to say 2 days.
Well, what's a typical timeline?
There is no typical. I mean, this to me was an emergency plan.
Okay.
This was an emergency plan. And I'm really glad I listened to my gut because my client ended up passing away the week after.
Oh, wow.
I think she had a stroke.
Wow.
And she just did not recover. But in that week, we got her power of attorneys in place. We got her trust in place. We put her house in trust. So we were really able to help that family out, right? But the thing is, that was like the 11th hour. And it was really like, I was stressed. I'm like, I swear to God, these people call me like I'm Jesus and I can walk on water and stop time. And, and it's not like that. And I get those phone calls. It's crazy. I get those phone calls. I got one like last summer, and it was this woman. This woman got my information from my post office. The lady at my post office. I talk to her all the time. I'm always shipping documents. She's always like, oh my God, I know someone probate. And we just have those little conversations. And she goes, the lady at the post office gave me your number. My mom's getting surgery on tomorrow. and we need you to go to the hospital today.
To get it done.
Wow. And I'm like, she's getting surgery tomorrow. She's like, yeah, we just found out Sunday. Well, she was talking to me on Wednesday. So you waited 4 days?
Yeah. Right.
That's madness, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, for me, my calendar's already booked 3 weeks in advance. Like there's very little wiggle room. And even if I was trying to make room for this, and I said to her, okay, oh my gosh, let's do it, but I'm going to have to charge you. And trust me, I don't even know what, I think these people thought I was going to go to the hospital and do all of this work and save the family home for like $100 because when I told her my legal service fee, she was like, that's more than what we thought. And I'm like, well, this is an emergency.
Yeah.
You want me, you could have called me Monday. You called me Wednesday. Your mom's going under the knife tomorrow.
Right.
But people they like to wait, it's crazy.
Well, on that topic then, if someone listening doesn't have his trust, is thinking about doing this now after listening to this podcast, what is the usual timeline? Well, what documents would they need first for you? And what's a typical timeline to generate a trust and have everything, in line for you on a normal basis?
Well, I'll tell you, what's funny? When I am talking to a prospect, I can tell you that probably the most important factors in our conversation are going to be, who do you trust
Oh,
the most? Not the documents, not that. That's secondary because that's so easy, right?
Mhm.
But trust me, it's really hard for people to tell me who they trust the most and then who
Okay.
they trust the second most. And it's very telling. Like I have clients, they're pretty affluent, got to leave their kids like $20 million each, which is great. I'm happy for them. But then when I ask them, like, oh, so who's going to help you in your time of need, right? Who's going to be there for you if you are in a car accident and you're in a coma? Oh man, that's when these conversations get so colorful. It's like, well, I don't trust my oldest child because
No.
he's greedy, and I don't trust my youngest because he's really like into listening to his wife. And I'm like, okay, well, who else besides your children? You don't have to choose your children.
Right.
You don't even have to choose anybody related to you by blood.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to trust them.
Right.
And then the conversation's like, well, I don't know, and
Right.
I start to wonder sometimes about my prospects, like, do you not have friends? Do you not have business associates that, if you have business associates, you must trust them to some degree because you've got money commingled together.
I think that's a little different when it comes to people. I've seen
Or
people
business
invest in
partners.
business partners invest in real crazy stuff and a lot of money. And if you tell them, hey, well, I need to something like this where they need to take care of me or even make a decision for me, they're like, I don't trust that person, but I'll give them $1 million to invest.
That's what. See. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's sort of where the buck stops with me. Like, okay, so you don't have these relationships in your life that are that meaningful that you would not trust these people, right? So that's really where it begins for me. Because after that, it is a process. I've streamlined a process. After that, if you can tell me you trust your best friend, you trust your cousin, and then you trust your second child, but not your first and your third, cool, it's go time, right? Then I get nosy. Do you have the deeds to your property? If not, fine, we'll order them. Where do you bank? Where do you have your retirement accounts? Do you have annuities? Do you have mutual funds? Then we do that stuff, right? But all of our assets is so secondary compared to who do we trust in our lives?
Right.
And you and I have young children. So really, this is where a lot of my younger parents get caught up is, who are you going to leave your children with?
Well, yeah.
Right? Because mom and dad, our parents, are not viable options.
Right.
Because if we follow the circle of life, our parents are supposed to predecease us.
Right.
So if they predecease us, how am I going to leave my kids with you?
Correct.
Right? So you want to leave them with, like, our brothers, our sisters, or people in our same generation, our best friends, whoever it is, right? But yeah, the young parents get tripped up on that. It's about who you trust. And then again, like I said, I do emergency plans. So if I have to get things done, in a day, 2 days, 3, I get them done. But typically I work on a 30-day process.
30-day process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless, like, I had a client in January and she retained me and she's like, yeah, we can work on a 30-day process. That's fine. Then a week and a half later, she goes, I feel like going to India for the next 6 weeks. I'm like, you just decided this? She's like, yeah. So can I see you like tomorrow?
Great.
Like, sure, I'll see you tomorrow.
Emergency processing right there, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah, that was funny when you were talking about that, because when we spoke, I guess a couple of months ago, when you told me that, like, hey, that was the first question you hit myself and my wife with, like, hey, don't worry about all the properties and all this other stuff. If something happens to either of you, where you leave your kids, and it kind of stunned us. And then we were driving on the way back, we're like, and I'm like, why are you quiet? She's like, I'm thinking about what she said. Like, wait. And I'm like, she's like, what do you think? I'm like, I am too. Because like, now you're really evaluating everyone in your life. Like, okay, who would I truly trust? And then it kind of puts it into perspective, kind of. It's
I mean, it's very, like, as long as one of you survives.
Right.
We don't go there, but it's always wonderful to have a contingency plan, right?
Well, when you're making these, right, you have to think of everything. It's like you have to come up with worst case kind of scenarios. That's what you're planning for.
Yeah, and like I said, like, you and I, we don't necessarily have to choose our siblings.
Mhm.
We don't have to choose blood relatives. We don't have to choose our cousins. It's just, who do we trust with our babies? Who do we trust to not steal from them?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I've got clients who have like 5 siblings, and this one couple, they admittedly told me like all of their 7 siblings collectively were crazy. No, I think the term was hot mess.
Hot mess. Okay.
So they were going to choose, like, one was going to choose her cousin and the other one was going to choose her best friend as a second choice. Great. If they're happy with that, then I'm happy with that. Right.
Mhm.
And you always want to have 2 or 3 choices
Mhm.
because life happens.
Life happens.
Life
Yeah.
happens. And you don't, you want a plan that's going to work no matter what.
Right. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Another thing I always run into, well, I'm actually running into right now with one of my clients, is the mom has 2 daughters, both trustees. She owns 2 properties, multifamily properties. She and the son-in-law, the husband, is actually managing everything. So he
That's
contacts.
very telling.
Yeah. So he contacts me and was like, "Hey, she's thinking of selling. What do you think?" So I said, "Okay, can I get some of the information?" And we were going back and forth on email, and then he emails me back that, hey, she talked to her CPA. The CPA advised her to just keep it. Once you pass, it's in a trust. It'll go to the daughters. And I said, okay, that's fine. And you get the step up basis. I mean, yeah, everything he said was correct. But I was like, is that what she wants? And he was like, wait. I'm like, that's what we need to ask her. Like, is that what you want, or do you want to be able to, see where your money goes right now? You can give it to them right now. It's in the trust. You can sell the property, or do you want to do that? So when you come across something like that with a prospect, and I'm gonna make this trust. I'll give it to my kids, but then I don't know. How do you advise them, or what would you kind of say? What's the best scenario for them at that time?
So I always try to listen and understand what the client's intentions are.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And I say that because sometimes what a client wants is not going to play out well. And I say that because I do start out with families where, oh, it's great. We form a living trust. We're going to create a family legacy. Everyone's happy families.
Right.
And then I've also been at the end where, my clients pass away. Then everybody's showing their true colors. Then I see actually the middle kid was the greediest. And, now there's this family drama. It wasn't there 5 years ago. So I've seen that. Different variations, because different families act different. We've got different factors happening in every situation. But so step 1 is for me to listen to what the client's intentions are. What do they want? What is it that they want to achieve? And then when I hear what it is that they're trying to, leave behind, what do they mean to do with their assets, then I try to sort of assess what the family dynamics are. Okay. Because if there's somebody now, you're still alive. If my client's still alive and they already have a child who's showing greedy tendencies.
Yeah.
And people are wild. They will tell you who they are. And sometimes you don't have to ask, right? That really factors into what my counsel is comprised of when it comes to my clients. A lot of people just think like I give legal advice, but a lot of it really is just like human nature advice.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that I love and hate about estate planning. I love it because of the people factor. We're really interesting.
Right. When you get to it, right?
Yeah. The human factor, wow. How many words to describe that? But then also the bad part about estate planning is the human factor, right? Greed, anger, grieving, all of that. So, that really determines like the family dynamics, that really determines where we're going to go.
Oh, okay.
It really, really does. And in your clients, scenario where we've got these two sisters that are fighting, and then the poor son-in-law who's been entrusted with these responsibilities, and I'm sure he's in the toughest seat, right? I would just say, let's talk to the client. Ask the client, what do they really, really want? And then sometimes you have to weigh the factors against each other, because the family drama, I mean, I see it and I'm like, it's just not even worth it.
Right. I mean, we see that a lot, both on my side and your side. Yeah.
Absolutely. I see bridges burned forever. I see sisters and brothers just never talking again. And over what? A bracelet?
Yeah.
No, this is wild. A garage full of stuff that is probably less than $100.
Really? Okay.
And at that point, it's not greed anymore. It's a lot of like grief and, all this anger and just issues, right?
Right.
So it's just really, for me, it's about minimizing the drama.
Minimize the drama, everyone. You saw that?
No time for that.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, like, I have clients that will try to disinherit their children.
Whoa. Okay.
And I used to, prior to being an estate planning attorney, I probably would have been really judgmental about that. Like, What do you mean you're going to cut your child out? But, the thing is that we forget about things like kids having substance abuse problems.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So, you're not going to leave them with anything, because we know where that money's going to go.
Right.
Right. Or we create a special needs trust for them and they only get like $20 a month. Okay. But we also have children who are like, man, some kids are really terrible kids. And it's funny, I call them kids because they're like older than us. They're like 60, 70. Right. They steal from their parents.
Oh, man. Okay.
No lie. They forge documents. They commit fraud.
Yeah.
To get their hands on assets. No. And so, it's wild, because some of these parents they're great. They have cognitive function. They're so there. It's wild, right? And so I've got clients that are like, yeah, I'm gonna cut them out because they stole $200,000 from me 2 years ago. And I'm like, and you didn't put them in jail?
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
I've heard stories, and I've seen it in real estate as well.
Yeah.
Someone signs over a document, they sell a multi-million-dollar property, and it happens.
Bananas. So in those situations, you got a drug addict, or you have, a greedy child who told you in so many words that they're greedy because they stole from you. Okay, cool. Cut them out. Okay, I get it. But then we have parents that are like, I hate my daughter-in-law, so I'm cutting my son out.
Oh.
Like that.
Okay.
So in that instance, I'm like, okay, you know what? That's not good enough to create a family all-out war when you die. It's not good enough. So why don't we talk about what's the least amount of money that you would leave your child so that they don't sue their siblings because they're hurt?
Right.
Because a hurt person who knows the estate is worth $5 million will drag this through court for years and years and years. And guess what? At the end of the day, once this stuff is settled, everyone only gets $5,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. I've also seen some of those.
It's not. Versus, okay, if you hate your daughter-in-law so much, why don't you just say, I give my son, I don't know, this IRA account, and then his siblings get the rest. And then we can write a little note in there that says,
this is why
I'm not happy about your life decisions, but I still love you as a child,
right?
Because you want to, part of the living trust, we're going to keep it out of court, but we want that ease of transfer. Dying is not, dying brings with it so many things. And it's just, I'm seeing like a lot of families just deal with grief differently. Anger comes out, sadness, of course, resentment, all of this. And it's like, let's minimize that.
Right. It's already a difficult time anyways.
Absolutely.
With
and
money involved, it gets even crazier.
Yeah. And so this is like, it's funny because what you and I talked about, so loaded, but I have a lot of prospects that are like, I don't want to talk to an attorney. I don't want to pay an attorney. I just want to find somebody on Instagram. And I just, I want to do, and I'm like, they're not going to give you legal advice. Right. They're not going to talk to you about maybe you shouldn't go left at this juncture. You should go right. You're not getting advice. You're not getting legal advice. You're not getting counsel. You're just getting whatever it is you're paying for.
Right.
And that's another thing. I'll have a lot of clients who are like, oh, they went to the wrong place the first time.
Okay.
Paid somebody $300. So first of all, if you own a home,
Mm-hmm.
if you own a home in California and you're paying somebody $300 for your estate plan, that is a red flag.
Okay.
It's like abort. Like that is not a sound estate plan. I can tell you right now, right? But then they get to me and they're like, oh my God, nobody ever told me this. Nobody ever told me. Yeah, because you only paid somebody $300. What kind of a conversation did you think you were going to have for that? How meaningful a conversation are you going to have?
Is there different? I know. Okay, so like you said, I can go on Google or Instagram and find estate attorney. I'll get a list.
Yes.
What differentiates people? Is there like a different kind of license in California, or is it something different that this person is more qualified compared to the next person?
I would just say do your due diligence. Interview people.
Mm-hmm.
Interview people, and think about it like this. I feel like what separates the intelligent, wealthy from the rest of us, okay, is that they really think about life in terms of investment.
Okay, interesting.
Okay,
right.
Like, am I investing in myself today? I'm going to go to the gym. Am I investing in my children today? We're going to put them through gymnastics. All of it. Everything is in terms of investments. How is this going to work for me and pay forward? So when I'm talking to certain, people and I tell them like, oh, this is how much an estate plan costs, they don't fight me so hard because they realize what this is for. It's an investment.
Right.
Right. It's to make sure the LLCs are good, that the house is good, that my wife is good, that we're okay in terms of incapacity. My children are going to get, what they're supposed to get. If I have to pay taxes, we're going to minimize that. But then I have people that are like, own $2 million homes and they're like, yeah, I'm only going to pay somebody $700 to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like,
hope for the best, right?
How much of an investment? How do you sleep at night? Right. So it's interesting. And, I tend to be pretty honest, I think, when it comes to my prospects. Like I was talking to a gentleman yesterday and he was very upfront with me. He was like, look, I want to be honest with you. You are the 5th estate planning attorney I've talked to. So this man was really trying to find his fit, which I appreciate. I think you should do that, right? Like if you haven't found if your gut is not telling you, I want to work with this person, or you're like, oh, I still just want to pay $300, talk to people, right? So this guy was like, yeah, you're like the 5th attorney, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, why don't you tell me the one that you want to work with? Why don't you tell me what they're offering you? So he went down the list of documents and I said, that sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful. He's like, yeah, I like them. They sound right. I'm like, okay. I said, well, why don't you tell me how much they're charging you? Because if they're charging you lower than me and you like them, work with them.
Correct. Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And he was like, he didn't want to tell me. He was cute. He's like, why don't you tell me how much you charge? I'm like, okay, fine. I told him and he's like, yeah, I'm going to work with them. It was great because he answered my questions. When he went down the list, I asked him several questions. I said, okay, are they going to draft your deed and record it for you? Are they going to, do this and that and that? And he said, yes. And I said, cool. I'm happy with your answers. Go work with them.
Right.
Work with somebody. It doesn't have to be me, but please don't be your own estate planning attorney. Don't pick the Instagram attorney. Oh my God. And the Instagram attorney, this is real life. When did I meet with her? Monday. She found this Instagram attorney and they gave her documents and
really
they let her sign her documents by herself. Okay. She signed the documents wrong. And then when I asked her, because usually when I get another attorney's client in front of me, I ask them like, oh, Bob Smith, Esquire, right? In Orange County. Like, why aren't you talking to him? She said, I can't find him anymore.
Oh, wow.
She said, I can't find him. I can't get to him. I'm calling and there's nobody. I'm like, oh.
Wow.
that's what you get when you pay $300. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So and there was a lot of things. There was a lot of things that was problematic with her stuff.
Did they make her like sign over the properties?
No, she just had to sign all of her documents without a professional in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
So there were some documents that she missed signing.
Okay.
Right? She filled out the deed wrong.
Oh, okay.
You should never have your client fill out their deed by themselves.
Right.
I know you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you know. So she ended up like, oh God, she ended up following the directions of the notary,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm a notary too. And trust me, if I was just a notary and not an estate planning attorney, bad. Right? But so they dated all the documents the same date. They dated the trust the same date, which was wrong.
Okay.
Like, it was just a mess. So
bad.
now she's got to clean up her deed situation at the recorders. This is what happens.
Yeah. Made more of a mess.
Yeah, this is what happens when you go to the wrong place the first time.
Right.
Right? This is what happens when you want to be smarter than everybody, the smartest person in the room, and not go talk to a professional. Like,
well, we see that.
Yeah.
A lot of time over here.
Yeah. And, I mean, I try to soften the blow. Like, I like to give free consultations, and I know my attorney friends like hate that about me. My attorney friends hate. But look, like, how else are members of the general public going to know that it's okay to talk about estate planning?
Right. It is a sensitive topic,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
How else are they going to know, like, it's okay to talk to a professional about this, right? And usually, these conversations end up, being fruitful, and it's a two-way street, because I can tell the person who's speaking to me, I can tell if they're actually serious or if they're just messing around.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, that was a lot of nuggets.
I know. We do this all day.
Yeah, that was a lot of stuff on there, which I appreciate. And I hope all the viewers and listeners got something out of this. If anything, what I got is, if you own property and you don't have an estate or a trust ready, you better get on it.
Get it together.
And if someone does want to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
Oh, that's a good one. Everywhere. No. I think the best thing to do would probably be you can email me.
What is your email?
It's attorney@lionnesslaw.me, or you can call me 619-245-5688. My number is on the state bar. If you Google like Lioness and then California State Bar, there's only one.
Oh, okay.
There aren't a lot of attorneys named Lioness.
Well, there you go.
I don't think I don't think there are a lot of people named Lioness either. So
that's awesome. Keeps you unique right there.
There you go.
There's your niche.
Yeah. And it keeps me like well behaved, because if there's only one of you, then they're going to remember.
They're going to remember you. There you go.
So it's like, get it together.
Yeah.
No.
Any social handles where they can follow you?
I am so bad. I haven't even started that yet. I'm like, life is good because I'm really busy.
Right.
But then, and I was just talking to one of my clients about this, who I think is probably going to start handling my social media stuff. But it's like, having social media is another part of your life.
It is.
That you have to set aside time for, right? You can actually just find me on Instagram, Lioness, LIONESQ.
But you're not like the other Instagram lawyers, right?
No, I mean, not yet. I know. I was telling Jack, like, we're going to be TikTok stars in 2 years in our respective fields. But no, I'm not there yet. I aspire to be, though. We shall see. I feel like it's a great avenue to certainly educate people about what needs to be known, right? Like, the wealthy have known this for years and years and generations. And then, but the problem is that, wealthy people aren't the only people who own real estate.
That's correct.
We've got middle class, just regular, everyday blue collar. Everybody's owning real estate now.
Right.
Right. And this is so crucial.
Yeah.
So crucial.
That's why I had you here, and I wanted to start this podcast because I wanted to, give back and educate all property owners, because as I've done in my field, even people that own property a long time or investments, like a trust. They don't even have that.
They
And
don't.
some do, some don't. And there's not a lot of planning. There's always, hey, I want to buy the property. I want to make some money, and then I want to buy another one. And okay. And I get it. You want to grow and you want to build wealth. Now you have the wealth. What do you do when you're not here? How do you plan that? So that's why I was kind of glad that you took the time. I know you're busy to come out here and
Thanks.
get on the podcast and educate myself and the viewers and the listeners on estate planning.
Yeah.
So
yeah, thank you so much. This is really entertaining and enjoyable. I'll come back anytime. We could share horror stories.
Okay, that'll be good. That'll be fun. We'll do that next time.
Yes.
So and to all the viewers out there or listening and watching, if you guys like this episode and want to hear more, please subscribe to my channel, my YouTube channel, and the podcast, and we'll have some more on the next one. Jack Patel with Sage Real Estate, and this is SoCal Multifamily Insights. Thanks for listening.